Good evening, and we would like to welcome you to our City Commission meeting, and we would like to call this meeting on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022 to order. We will now have an invocation by Pastor Paul McKenzie of Bethel Evangel Community Church. He is a strong member of our community, but his father was also the pastor of my home church, First African Baptist Church, and we just are so thankful to have him and his family in our community. Thank you, Pastor. Could everyone please stand?
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, and good evening, commissioners. Let's bow our heads, please. Father, we're so grateful to be here tonight. We thank you for the privilege of being able to assemble in this way. And we thank you for the responsibility of leadership. We thank you for each and every office, dear Father, that you have called to your service. We thank you for this wonderful community that we have the privilege to live in, to grow up in, to raise our children in, to work in, Father, to play in. We're grateful. And we know, dear Father, that it takes wisdom, it takes vision, it takes planning, it takes oversight to be able to handle all these responsibilities well. We thank you right now because your word assures us that if we need wisdom, we simply have to ask you, and you will not hold it back from us, but you will give it to us liberally. So tonight we thank you, Father, that you will lead and direct this meeting through these leaders, dear Father, as you give them a heart of wisdom and knowledge in terms of what this community truly needs and what we must focus on for right now and for the future. And in all these things, of course, we give you all the glory, and we ask it only in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to take a small moment of personal privilege before we jump in and just say that Bethel Evangel is also a polling place. So we want to say thank you, Pastor, for opening up your church, and for all of those in the community. Please know that if you are in the city, this is one of your polling places. If you don't know where to go get registered, just go knock on the door of the church when they're open, and I'm sure they'll point you in the direction of our different places that you can do that. So we thank the pastor and thank his congregation. At this moment, is there any addendums to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to add as item number 5A, consider approval for resolution 2022-05, recognizing April 24th through the 30th as Georgia Cities Week.
Appreciate that. Hearing a motion, do I hear a second? Second. Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the addendum is on the agenda. At this point in time, can I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Hearing a motion, do I hear a second? Second. Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, the agenda has been accepted. We will now move into the first item on our agenda, which is a presentation from Mr. Pierce, the project manager regarding coastal incentive grants and tide control.
Hey, good evening. I was just going to give you a quick update synopsis of the grant. As you know, we applied for and got a coastal incentive grant to study tide control on the east side of Brunswick along Highway 17 in the Riverside neighborhood. This grant meshes closely with our stormwater master plan because both of those projects, the east side tide control and Riverside neighborhood, are listed as priority projects in the stormwater master plan. So this is kind of touching on both of those projects as well. It's a coastal incentive grant through the Georgia DNR, And one of the requirements of all coastal incentive grants is to take what other communities and other plans have already learned and incorporate that into the study, and then distribute that information or make public that information that we learned and what we're doing. So that's one of the reasons for being here, to update y'all, but also to fulfill the grant process of the getting our study and what we've learned out to the public. For the grant, Georgia Water and Environmental Services was selected as the consultant to manage the grant and work on the design and permitting for us. So Mr. Ben Pierce is here with Georgia Water and Environmental, and he will be giving y'all the update on the grant, tell you where we're at now, or what we've done to get to this point, and then kind of what the next steps are moving forward. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Pierce.
Appreciate it.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. McDuff, and Mr. Corey, and Ms. Naomi Atkinson for listening to us this evening. So my name is Ben Pierce. I'm with Senior Project Manager with GWS right here in Brunswick. We are engineers and consultants specializing in stormwater, environmental, and traffic and transportation consulting services. We have an office just down the street on Newcastle. We have a new office that we're planning on moving into in the coming weeks on Gloucester. You may see a new sign, GWES, right next to the Soglo Guitar Shop, right next to City Hall. So we're there, and we now have a nice storefront. We're hiring some employees, and we're very excited about the growth potential here in the city of Brunswick. So as Gara had mentioned, we are providing you all the service for this tide control project. Just to kind of give you a little bit of what you have in front of you, we're going to go through the slides, but what you have in your packet is just essentially just some pictures. The 8.5 by 11 sheets are just some slides and some pictures that we're going to look through here as we go through the presentation. Also, you have about 5 or 6, 7 or 8 sheets, 11 by 17-inch sheets. This is a sample of where we're at in the design plan process at this time, approximately a 90% completion level. Moving forward beyond this meeting and this milestone, we'll be pursuing Corps of Engineer permitting, DNR permitting, other permits here in our area. The second sheet of the 11 by 17 you might want to keep in front of you just for reference. It's a key map for all the locations that we're looking to make improvements in, and they're along 17 in the Riverside area, as Gara had mentioned, as well as a couple of areas on the north side. So just to kind of give you a brief introduction about what you have there in front of you. So the first line here is just, as I said, just an introduction about what the project is about. We're going to kind of move through here. And of course, if you have questions or anything else that comes to mind, just please feel free to let me know. If you can't read it, I do apologize. I can certainly describe any of this to you, but essentially we've identified through the master plan, the stormwater master plan, we've identified several outfalls on the east side of Brunswick that have been inundated consistently with tide, with sediment deposits, growth of marsh elevation that impact the upstream stormwater ability to discharge. And so several of those locations that were found in the master plan were what we are pursuing with this project and with this grant. A couple of the key problems that I've seen in my experience of doing stormwater management with Glenn County and with helping you all is sediment deposits, is really the growth of marsh and the growth of sediment deposits right at the at the end of the outfall, essentially where the storm sewer system discharges into jurisdictional areas, low-lying areas, its sediment deposits, and kind of growing and building up in front of your what's called outfalls. And that prohibits the ability for stormwater to pass through freely. And so this project looks at trying to, as much as possible, trying to remedy that problem and trying to make it easier for maintenance staff to clean those inlets or the points where they outlet into the marsh, as well as controlling the ability for the tidal elevations to get back into your upstream stormwater system, which has a limiting effect on its capacity to allow stormwater to get out. The couple of priority areas that we can see from the slide, and we'll get through here with your key map. The outfalls along 17 at the discharge point from Lanier Plaza, as well as the end of Talmadge Avenue, the Wildwood Drive area, kind of on the north side, the Parkwood Drive area near Towers Plaza, as well as several locations in the Riverside area. So some of your, the grant, kind of the introduction and the details even of what the grant includes. Again, it's NOAA funded. The theme here of this particular grant is disaster resilience and coastal hazards. Approximate timeline is 1 year in duration from start to finish. You can request an extension, but these projects, depending on the scope, generally are accomplished within a 1 year period. The funding can be up to $80,000 annually. So far, $57,000 have been requested by the city in 2021. These funds are received upon the project completion. Full project cost is $98,580, which kind of results as you look further down, requires a 1-to-1 match. The city funded match is $41,580 plus the additional in-kind dollars, such as this meeting today, other meetings that we've had with staff and other future meetings that city staff and folks like yourself can attend will count toward those in-kind match dollars. A few of the milestones that we've had so far, again, project initiation and kickoff back in October of 2021. There was an interim status report that was required that was submitted on April 7th of this year, and the anticipated completion date of the end of September of this year. Few of the deliverables to note: design drawings necessary, permits, 2 community education events, which this is your first. The next will be at a brown bag DNR presentation, and really toward the completion of the project. Once the permits have been completed and the design plans have been completed, it really is a lessons learned presentation. 2 additional meetings with other coastal incentive communities, as well as summary memos are the deliverables for this project. A few of the timeline items that we have seen so far, some things to look forward to. Again, looking at the project kickoff back in October 21, really within the end of the year of last year, we focused on jurisdictional delineations, marsh delineations, core delineations. We started our survey earlier this year, and back in March of this year, just last month, we submitted our 90% plans. So that's essentially where we're at to date. We continue on with our community education, which is today's meeting. Permitting is what's going to happen next. So once we've fulfilled this obligation, we will be moving toward Army Corps of Engineer and DNR permitting, and we will be handling those services for you all. And again, final design and the final presentation to follow in September. A little bit of background. Most of this information I'm sure you're familiar with, but just kind of as an introduction about the importance of controlling the tide. You can see the familiar picture that we have on the right of this area really underwater from a hurricane event. And then on the left, it's a schematic of when you have the tide elevation inundating into your system, it really prevents stormwater from discharging out into the low-lying areas. So a little bit more of a background. The master plan identified several of these outfalls in addition to the several outfalls in the Riverside area. The inability for stormwater to discharge into these areas as designed really has rippling impacts upstream in terms of flooding and standing water and loss of property. So let's look over in some of the existing conditions and the locations. Again, using your key map, that would be kind of a helpful guide as we looking at these areas. The first area is your Lanier Plaza, which is the east side of 17. There's 3 locations where we've identified from the master plan, identified areas of tide control project. They're at Cook Street, which is near the causeway, again, at I Street, which is the discharge point from Lanier Plaza, and then Talmadge Avenue. Interestingly, it may be difficult to see, it's also on your slide that Talmadge Avenue is completely inundated with sediment at this time. That's one of the main reasons why the main reason why it's flooding so much upstream. Continuing on to Parkwood, you have a shot of that on your second page of your handouts, a picture of myself there at the outfall at Parkwood Drive. That's near the Towers Plaza. The problems that we've had there as a double flap gate that doesn't seal properly, as well as fully submerged even at low tide. Inability for stormwater to get out properly. The Wildwood Ditch area on the north side of the city. Again, just some pictures with an existing box culvert underneath 17. You have a tidal ditch along Myrtle Avenue. And it's a really open-ended on both sides. And so this portion of the project, you can see it has marsh jurisdictional areas in this area. And as well, it has some high sediment deposits in front of your culverts and pipes. All right, and then moving forward to the Riverside neighborhood, you can see some further pictures on the first slide or first handout where you've got Sapelo Island Drive, 5028 Riverside Drive, as well as at the end of Blackbeard Island Circle outfall. Again, several of these outfalls in the Riverside community are inundated with marsh and sediment with the inability for stormwater to adequately flow out. So those are some of the existing conditions that we found.
Ben, could I ask you a question?
Please, yes, sir.
about, Riverside Drive.
Absolutely.
How high does the tide have to go before these gates start to work?
So right now, there are no gates. Right now, it's just a pipe at
What
the
you
end.
propose?
What we're proposing, yes, sir. So I tell you what, if you look at the left-hand side of the exterior check valves over there, we've placed these in several places on St. Simons and in Glenn County. But these exterior check valves manufactured by TideFlex, it really, as long as the tide elevation isn't above the top of that tide gate, stormwater has the ability, based on differential pressure, to be able to push out. Okay, so if you have the tide coming back into the system, but it's blocked at that tide gate, the technology available in this particular style of tide gate allows stormwater to discharge out as long as that differential, as long as your stormwater is higher than your tide, it can still be able to discharge out with this particular type of technology. Yes, sir. So it varies. So to answer your question is that it varies depending on where the elevation of the pipe and of the tide gate is located. But I can tell you in Riverside and a lot of the areas that we're looking at, even during high tide, elevations aren't inundating into the into the sewer system, storm sewer system. What we're seeing the limitations within Riverside and some of these areas that we're looking at is that the marsh elevation is so high relative to where the stormwater system is. And so the roads, the inlets, if they're at or below or slightly above where the marsh elevation is, it doesn't have it's not very functional to be able to discharge water out.
Well, with intercoastal waterway
Yes, ma'am.
not being maintained, it's, where is it gonna go, you know? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
gotta come back to where we're trying to get water out.
That's right.
I mean, there's no other way for it to go.
That's right. That's right.
And that's a big problem right there. I mean, what is it gonna take to get an intercoastal waterway?
Yeah,
To so that we have a chance out there.
that's right. That's right. I think things like this to show the importance of being able to discharge out and to having, your waterways as low and as maintainable as possible so that your stormwater can have an ability to discharge out. Because if it doesn't, then again, you're susceptible to upstream flooding. All right.
Ben, I have a question too
Yes,
on
ma'am.
existing
Ms. Moore.
conditions.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess it's a double question is, are these different outfall areas, I don't know how old they are.
Mhm.
Should they be occasionally maintained? In other words, a backhoe to get the sediment moved on
Mm.
out? I mean,
Yes,
what
yes,
care and feeding is needed
yes.
for anything new that we put in
Yes.
to replace some of this?
Yes. So the excavation that you're talking about is most beneficial at the outfall, the point where your pipe meets the marsh, right? In my experience with this, the regulatory challenges are great,
Yeah.
even in trying to just dig out in front. DNR is willing to work, but there's processes to go through. This project and the permit that you all will be receiving allows for the maintenance to be performed on these outlet control structures. Okay, so what that does is that enables your staff they don't have to go through a CMPA process. That's what the process we're doing right now. It allows staff and maintenance staff to maintain these as necessary. There's some technology and some design that we're adding to the end of the structure to allow for sediment to have ability to accumulate before it gets to that stormwater system. Okay. But yes, from a permitting perspective, what we're accomplishing with this project allows the city staff, the maintenance staff to go out as necessary and clean out in front of it. That's the beauty of when you lump them all together and you include it into the overall permit, that perpetual maintenance will be necessary and you build that in. That's where it allows the staff and you all to maintain that as necessary.
So as part of maintenance, then, if I'm understanding you
Yes, ma'am.
correctly, you might change and instead of just a drain
Yes,
outfall, you might put a double flapper in, or,
yes,
and that's all part of maintenance then, even if you're updating or upgrading
yes.
what's in place.
Yes, ma'am. So with my experience on this, as long as you're updating the technology, you've got an existing head wall, maybe there's an old flap gate or some type of sluice gate or something that's a tight control measure. Yes, the DNR, the Corps of Engineers, allows you to change that technology out, to replace that technology, right? So it's, if you want to remove up the old flapper gate and put on a new tide flex or an inline valve, they allow you to do that. But what this does is taking those outfalls, number one, that don't have any head wall protection and providing that. And then number two, what we're doing also is providing an area that's being excavated out in front of it to accumulate or be allowed to reduce the accumulation of sediment in front of it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So there's no pump used anywhere in any of this process.
No, ma'am. No, sir. This is all by gravity. All right. Just a little bit on the technology that we investigated. Again, very familiar, or I'm sure some of these are somewhat familiar to you. The TideFlex products, the exterior check valves on the left, your interior check valves, these essentially slide into your storm sewer system at the end, as well as flap gates, inlets that can be used as what's called bubble boxes. There are some advantages to all of these types of technology, but we did our research on those to determine what may be the best course of action as our recommendations to you all. In addition to the services that we provided in terms of the design, we've also reached out to the city of Savannah, Chatham County, city of St. Mary's, to get their feedback on what they do in terms of tide control. Very similar measures that the Chatham County, city of St. Mary's and city of Savannah, they implement very similar types of technology. And so that was another deliverable that we had, another task and service that we provided. Conceptual improvements, again, we submitted back last year a 30% conceptual report that outlined each location and possible replacement alternatives and the cost and the advantages and disadvantages of each of those types of improvements. We come to the 90% design plans. Again, I'll refer you back to your handout, the 11 by 17. These are just a sample. You can kind of see some of the detail of what we've put together thus far. With on C5, you can see the Parkwood outfall and the areas of improvement. C6 and following, you're getting into some riverside community areas. C13, again, just a sample. You've got your Cook Street or your Causeway outfall. It's a pretty large system there, 48-inch culvert. Let's see.
I'm just curious about the shape
Yes.
of the outfall apparatus on C13 and
Yes, ma'am.
C14, that narrow, it's like a snake's eye or something.
So that is, let me see if I can get back to a picture that may be more helpful to understand. That's essentially what the channel looks like at the outfall. Maybe we don't have a very good picture on the slides. Let's see. Bear with me for a moment. On your handout, you may have something that's a little bit more indicative here, where it says the FJ Torres Causeway outlet there. That's in conjunction with what's on C13. You've essentially got right at the marsh level, you've got this serpentine, windy stream that leads out from the outfall that leads back to the south to where the low-lying marshes is. And so what we're proposing here is just to reroute that discharge, provide some bank stabilization at the outfall location there on the downstream side. The head wall is a 48-inch flared head wall, concrete head wall with the TideFlex check valve at the end there, mounted to the head wall.
Well, I was curious as
I'm
to
sorry, yes.
why the narrow opening? What is the purpose of that?
Oh, I'm
narrow-
sorry. Sure, absolutely. So that's, let me go back to a picture. The picture of the product may give a better indication of what it looks like. All right. The bottom left picture was a picture of the tide gates that we replaced over at the golf course on St. Simons, Sea Palms Golf Course on St. Simons. That's near their maintenance facility. Those are two, I believe, 54-inch culverts with TideFlex check valves. And so what essentially happens at the end is that it's narrow. It has like kind of a slit look to it when it's closed. so that it prevents water from coming back in. But when stormwater comes through, it opens up. Ideally, under full flow, it opened up into a circular shape.
Okay,
And when that flow reduces, it goes back down into this flat vertical shape
okay.
to prevent the tide water from coming back.
So it's
in.
not a rigid shape.
No, ma'am, absolutely not. Any further questions before we move on?
Cook Street, is that,
Yes.
right there at, the entrance to the new food store we got there? Is that where this?
That is on,
operation is?
that is on the east side of the Causeway ramp. So if you're going on 17 North and you take the ramp toward the Causeway, it's just at that base area where your ramp is going off. You see from the key map right here on this C2, you've got a picture of it or location of it right there. So that's where that location is. So that drains quite a bit on the other side of 17 flowing into this area. All right. Moving on, I'll move on, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We'll kind of hustle through some of these other slides. Opinion of probable cost, always interesting and unnecessary to review over cost of these. You can tell the conceptual pricing that we have thus far. 3 outfalls, 460,000. The Parkwood outfall, because of the tide gates, the head walls and erosion control, looking at closer to 300,000 in construction dollars. The Riverside outfalls, I just draw your attention to with the number of head walls that you have and the proximity of where those are located. Those will be the construction access will be difficult there. So I believe that's what's going to drive your prices up and construction costs there as well. Permitting, I think we've covered a little bit of this. EPD, the Corps of Engineers, the DNR, Coastal Resources Division, as well as GDOT. Those GDOT permits, encroachment permits come in with the 17 outfalls or the US 17 outfalls. Again, next steps, we've illustrated a little bit of this before. With this meeting, this fulfills one of the obligated public meetings. Next, we're going to be pursuing the permitting through the Corps of Engineers and the DNR. Once those permits have been procured and in hand, we'll be moving to producing the final stamped plan set. So at the end of the project, really in the September timeframe, you'll have in hand permits, you'll have design plans ready to bid, and you'll have construction cost estimates for budgetary purposes.
And is there grant funding available to go through the construction?
So that's where we've identified obviously SPLOST, federal and state grants. There are federal and state grants that can be investigated. I know that LMIG is a possibility. I know there are other federal CDBG grants possibly, and of course SPLOST as well.
Right, okay, thank you.
On the Riverside project, again, we've got 8. Is that what we have out there right now, the way of outfall?
They're more than that.
I really know. I live out there, but I don't know. And by the way, I'm very interested in all of these, but
Okay.
I'm sure I'm gonna get some calls on this thing. So.
Well, I can tell you, Mr. Kaysen, that those are difficult. Some of these locations are difficult to access. And that's typical in outfalls in neighborhoods where you have the inlet in the road and you have the outfall pipe goes between 2 homes. It's difficult, people put fences and all kinds of things,
So
just some
Gary,
things to consider.
how many outfalls do we have out there right now? You know?
The Riverside neighborhood,
Yes.
I'm not sure that's right off the top of my head. There are a few more than what we're studying here out there. Yes, sir. But I don't know the exact number.
Well, we know we don't have enough,
Right.
that's for sure.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions? Anything else I can discuss? Okay.
Just a few from me, just so I can fully understand.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate your time and the work that you all are
Absolutely. Thank you.
doing and Also appreciate you calling Brunswick home. So
That's right.
appreciate you
Thank you.
growing here in the city.
Great.
One, I guess the first question that I thought about was, we're going through this process so staff will be able to maintain these outfalls.
Yes, sir.
And would they be able to, I know there seems to be an ask, not from you all, but a showing that we need some upgrades. But even if we don't make those upgrades, staff is still able to now handle the debris that's out there, or is I guess is what the state is saying, you all need to do this before they can start to handle that maintenance?
Can I answer that question? I faced this problem several times with Glenn County. And I can tell you, my staff, as I'm sure is much like you all staff, we do the job that we need to do. If people are flooding, we will do the absolute best that we can to prevent flooding. But the regulatory process, it's in place for its purposes, and it provides means of protecting the environment. But it does limit the expediency of which outfalls like these can be maintained. It's not a quick process. I can assure you that. It takes months and months to go through processes with just one agency, with just the DNR. I'm not sure of all Garrow's experience with it, and I'm sure he has plenty of scenarios. But in my expectation, in my experience, staff do what they can to maintain the critical infrastructure that they've been given to maintain and steward. And they do, as I said, the staff that I had from Glenn County were excellent in maintaining what they could to prevent people from flooding. And if flooding occurred, they did what they could to blow pipes, to get out the end of the pipes and clean them out so that stormwater could move out. And
Mayor, excuse me.
okay.
Could I add to that? I'm sorry to interject.
Sure.
We did meet, Garrow and I and staff met with DNR last year. It was, I can't remember when it was, but there were some things we were going through right now, an application for a buffer variance, which is one of the processes that he's referring to try and mitigate some of that time frame of getting approvals for working in the outfalls. We are also working to establish new baselines, which will help us to be able to maintain the ditches better. And Garrow can give you, I guess, a little bit more detail, but those are two things that we're working on right now that will help us kind of, even if this doesn't happen, better maintain the outfalls.
And I guess, like you say, Mr. Pierce, it's that balance between trying to make the improvements and the upgrades that are needed without disturbing the marshland,
The
the
environmental
protection,
aspects.
yeah,
things.
all
Yes,
of
ma'am.
that. Yeah.
That's right.
Carol, how many times have I asked you about ditches being cleaned out, particularly those from the Highway 17 and
Oh, a
and
bunch,
the
yeah.
towers? Literally for years, just for everybody's information here, and you just can't get the DNR to come around.
Like Ben said, it's a months and months process right now, but if we can get a lot of these things in place, like you said, sort of a permission process will be kind of attached to these outfalls, and with the buffer variance and the establishment of the existing baselines, we should be able to narrow that down to a matter of, few days, couple of weeks, where we send them a letter and say, hey, we need to jump out here and clean this outfall. And they write back and say, okay, they've established the need for that maintenance, and we can do that. So it should shorten that time frame significantly.
And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how we can make sure we get all of them on a, somewhat of a decent scheduled path of maintenance and upkeep. And what I'm hearing is that along with the upgrades comes some bypass of some regulatory standards that you have to do for your staff to be able to clean it and maintenance and have maintenance around it. And for the ones that we don't do, because there are, I'm sure, other outfalls throughout the city, for the ones that we don't do, if we don't get under this kind of process, are we still in the process where it's going to take months to make sure we get that, or is the variance
The
helping? with that?
variance that Ms. McDuffie mentioned and that establishment of those existing baselines will help us with that. We can show, okay, hey, this ditch should be at this elevation, but it's silted in here, so we need to go back and clean that out. That will help with that. They still won't be as quickly or as easily accessible as these, which we've got the tide control on, but it'll shorten the current process.
And thank you for that. The next question I had is, as I look at your key map, and I can see, obviously, these are of importance. And I definitely understand the Riverside neighborhood being that adjacent to the water. My question, there are two parts of the question. Is there a negative connotation to using pumps? The reason I ask is Commissioner Kasem, when he asked that question, I thought was interesting, because if we're in a community that naturally floods, the flood waters will obviously be probably above even that outflow.
Yeah.
So do you need pumping technology at some of these to continue to push water away?
Yes. Well, it depends on the size of the outfall. A large navigable stream with water going through it can certainly benefit from electrical pumping. But a lot of times the infrastructure that we're discussing here are so isolated in their outfall size that a pump, the expense of the pump for that one location, in addition to 6 or 7, a dozen more locations, in my opinion, it doesn't make it as efficient, because you have several of these little bitty, I want to say little bitty, those smaller discharge outfalls that your maintenance escalates, your maintenance of those pump stations and lift stations escalates when you have so many that you're trying to maintain in such a small drainage area basin comparatively to some of the, I would say, some of the larger systems that you have in more metro areas or in the city, like city of Savannah, Chatham County area.
How about somewhere, excuse me, I didn't mean, go ahead. How about somewhere like Charleston? How do they do it as low as Charleston is?
Mr. Kasem, I have to be honest, I've never been to Charleston. I've never been there, I have to say.
Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe when my son was going to college in Charleston. I'll tell you.
Okay.
It's low.
Well, I
They
can,
got to use other methods.
yeah, I can tell you that the maintenance of stormwater pumping stations is ongoing. The expense is almost annually, where you have to pull pumps, you have to maintain them, you have to get someone that's licensed and skillful to pull those pumps, service the pumps, put them back in. St. Simons has one location of that where it's a stormwater pump station. My experience, it's an annual process of pulling the pumps, painting, changing filters, cleaning out the grates, all kinds of.
Is that county or your water sewer?
It's county. Yes, sir. Right there at Barnes Plantation along Frederica Road.
I've got another thing I'd like to point out while we're doing this. That not only do you have the intercoastal waterway on the backside of Riverside, it's really and truly just wreaking havoc for us out there. But you've got the same thing at Highway 17, at what we used to call the old Brunswick Boat Marina. It's until we get, that's got to be addressed. I mean, it's just got to, that silt has got to come out of that basin. It's it is a large degree, in my opinion. I'm not a professional like you are. I've been here all my life.
Sure.
And we used to use that basin as they used to water ski out there. No snow skiing, but water skiing. And they also, we had hydroplane races out there back in the old days. I'm talking about people racing hydroplanes out in that basin. And through all these years, we've made it just silt in. It would be what a wonder for our drainage if we could get that basin unsilted.
I understand.
And the DNR was out there. That's another thing. I don't know how many people know that. The city traded that piece of property for the piece of property where the DNR is out at the bridge.
Okay.
And as long as the DNR was in there, they were using boats there behind Marside. That's where their office was. And you really didn't have that silting problem until they moved out to their new location on the higher water. That really needs to be part of where we're going with this thing is looking at those areas and trying to to protect the whole city,
Sure.
to get the intercoastal waterway out there down 17 and behind Riverside, and then that basin there at I'm gonna call it the old boat marina. It's Marside Grill now.
Right.
It's got to be taken care of. It won't be long if we don't do something about it before you'll be able to play soccer and football out there. It's silting in that fast.
I understand.
And this is my last question. I know all of these are, I'm assuming, called outfalls because they're where the water is finally dumping out into the larger body of water.
That's right.
But I think, are we learning anything, and this may be a question for Director Albertson as well, are we learning anything that we can take to other communities that are inland? Because, when I think about College Park and I think about Magnolia Park, there seems to be outfall systems that go into ditches. Some reason it seems like those communities flood and the ditches aren't flooded, or, and I don't know if that has to do with a cleaning of, I don't want to call them outfalls, but where the water is escaping into those ditches to move to the larger body of water.
Yep. The answer is that there's a lot of benefit that other communities that aren't quote unquote coastal communities that can benefit from this, particularly those areas and those agencies that are low lying. I'm thinking of Brantley County, Ware County, Calhoun County, Charleston County and Camden County that are lower areas. They're not necessarily tidally influenced, but they're low-lying areas where, again, the standing water produces sediment that drops and settles into the stormwater system. And the maintenance of those is vital, because what we're addressing here, yes, is the control of where the tide can come in, right? Yes. But what we're addressing here also is the importance of maintaining the upstream system so that the sediment that can deposit in those won't reduce its overall functionality and efficiency. Because with the installation of a check valve or some tide control measure, that prevents the standing tide from coming in and coming out, coming in and coming out, and eliminating or producing that amount of sediment that's in the system. So I think it shows that if you don't maintain your system well enough, Mother Nature is going to take over and just really cause an inefficiency in your system overall.
I thank you. That's all the questions I have. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you so much.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
With that, we will now move on to the public hearing area of our agenda and consider approval of alcohol beverage license for Cravers Wings and Grill. Officer Blue.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Tonight I'm presenting Cravers Wings and Grill. He is located at 3421 Cypress Mill Road, Suite 1. He currently has an on-premise consumption of beer and wine with Sunday sales, but his business is growing, which is a good thing. And he is requesting an on-premise consumption of beer, wine, and distilled spirits, but he is dropping the Sunday sales because he's closed on Sundays. Backgrounds has already been done. Nothing's negative was found. And I present this for your approval. He is here tonight to answer any questions that you may have.
I appreciate you, Deputy Marshal. With that, I think in general, Mr. Ransom, if you could come up, we as a commission love to hear from the business owner, and we thank you for being here with us this evening.
Evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you guys for having me today. Yeah, man, Cravers is growing. We started many years ago in the garage for this thing, and to see where it's going now is it's kind of surreal. You know, it's kind of surreal to actually be asking to upgrade a alcohol permit. I didn't even think we would even get to this point. And so to see that, like I walked in, never met you a day in my life, but you said your wife comes in. Like, yeah, so what I mean is Cravers is reaching out to way more than just my friends at this point. You know, we're growing, getting bigger in the city. I have a lot of people come in on after work, I can say, who want who want them a beverage after work, and something other than a beer and wine, you know, after a long day, or who come in with their families. We have way more family come in now, and we have groups come in now, you know, people who have not just sorority, fraternity, but organizations in the community who want to come, who want, you know, more than just the beer and wine. And it's and it goes well with the wings, you know, because the wings are more of a conversation food. You know, a lot of people sit and eat wings, and they sit there for long periods of time, you know, even after the wing is gone. And I want Cravers to be able to still provide that environment for them. You know, it's a good environment. We pride ourselves on that. If you ever come in there, we try and keep that place as best it can be from front door to back door. And also, honestly, the adding the permit is helping my business. The price of food has tripled for us. As a small business right now, it is. I'm just glad we made it through the wintertime. And so getting that license will kind of help me offset some of those costs. At least I can say I have this to offer now. Maybe you can't afford the high price wings I got, but at least you can get you something else, you know, I mean, you know, but I have to, because what, you know, and I understand, you know, I'm not like, I think I'm the only small business wing place around here. Everything else is like franchises. So I know it's easy to turn around and go to the bigger spot, still pay the same price, but it's, you know, it feels more normal. So if we can add those extra products to the menu, you know, it'll help keep our customer base in and keep it growing. So I'm asking y'all, I need it, I want it, and but yeah, definitely.
What are your hours right now?
Right now, we're from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then hopefully on the weekends, we'll start staying up a little later. I'm just limited on staffing right now, and I got one good, reliable team around me. So we get in there together at 11. We get out of there when we close, man. So we all work. I'm not the owner that just comes in and check. Like I cashier, I cook, I scrub floors, everything you could think of, man. And Matt, my wife's not here with me. She's I just know how to cook wings. She know how to do everything else, man. So but yeah, man. So I'm here for that.
You get your outdoor edition fixed?
Yeah, I got it all taken care of. We got fans and everything. We actually trying to get it expanded 15 feet down the breezeway a little farther, because we having a lot of people come out there now. You know, it seats, I think 40, 45 out there. And so we're trying to get it so at least it can seat like 60 people comfortably outside, you know, with the TVs, the games and everything. My goal was to try and have these things done before like football season and all, you know, and but we're growing. I can actually see it growing. The amount of people, there's more people coming in there saying, man, I've heard about y'all, word of mouth, or we Googled you guys. They can't give a 5.0 on Google, but they gave us a 4.9. And that's, you know, that's 2 years later, you know, so we're trying to maintain great customer service, maintain great food, maintain a great environment, and just grow, man, like literally grow, stay in the fight. So.
We appreciate you being here tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
No, it's always important for the owner to come down. You know, Mr. Ransom, we know each other from growing up, and I've seen you grow as a man, but not only that, grow your business. And before you even got into your spot, I remember you taking wings to the nurses, making sure you were taking care of our officers, making sure you always are giving back to the community. You've held several community events at your space to be able to give back not only to the community, but football team, basketball teams and the such. So I just want to say we appreciate you being a strong member of our community. Even more so, the businesses on the north side are just as important as the businesses downtown. And for you to be choosing the north side to grow right next to the College Park community where your family is,
Yes, sir.
the Magnolia Park community and others,
Yes, sir.
it's just really important to see business owners choosing the north side of our city to really grow. So I appreciate that. My only question that I have is in your kind of growth model, and as you see the north side, are business owners like yourself, I know Grandy's has always been a staple there, and they moved into their new building. Are you starting to see yourself attracting other businesses around the area and grow?
Yes. I've noticed even from the people in the plaza that I'm in with, people say they haven't seen this plaza like this in years since we moved over there. Even if they're not stopping at Cravers, they still circling the block to kind of see what's over there. You know, even with all the additions we made, people still, this is a small town, and we're intrigued to see what's next. You know, that's with anything. And we're not new, but we're growing, and people notice growth. And so I'm starting to see that even there's a real estate company that moved 2 doors down from me, and they say they wanted to get it because they see how big this parking lot is all the time. Prior to Cravers, I think there was just H&R Block over there. So they was only busy, you know, kind of like February time, tax season. So, so I'm noticing that. I'm noticing the growth with business all along Community Road, Cypress Mill Road area. And just more people, man. I really thought that when Grandy's got there, it was gonna kind of bury me. Cause that's a Goliath, man. You know, it is what it is. But I'm actually growing inspiration. The guy, Mr. Paul, that owns it, he actually comes, hey, hang in there, young man, hang in there. You're gonna be, he don't have to do that. You know, he actually comes in there and encourages me. And now I look at it like, man, I hope Cravers one day, to the point we happen to, you know, busy like that. But in order to get that way, you know, I had to keep my foot on the gas, keep growing the business the right way, do things the right way, put the right people around us so we can be successful. So, yes, sir.
Well, we appreciate you. I know this is a period for public comment, so we want to open it up to the public if we have anyone in the crowd who has any comments. Seeing none, we will open it up for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the alcohol beverage license for Cravers Wings and Grill at 3421 Cypress Mill Road, Suite 1.
Here in the first, do I hear a second? Here in the first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We appreciate you, Mr. Ransom.
Man, thank you guys, man. Thank y'all, man.
Stick in there now.
Good evening.
Thank you.
We will now have our consent agenda items, which is consider approval of April 6, 2022 regular scheduled minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve as written.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I got a discussion here. You ready?
Yes, sir.
The item number 3, the coastal health services. He asked for $330,000 from the county and the city.
And that's over a 3-year period too, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is it in there 3? It is next 3. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. All right. Okay, we got a second. I'm ready to go.
Yes, sir. We have a first, and we have a second. All those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We will now move on to our items to consider for approval. Consider approval of resolution number 2022-04, adding June 19th or Juneteenth to the city holiday calendar. We'll turn it over to City Manager McDuffie.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I am truly excited to be able to make this recommendation to the Commission for in addition to our benefits and to our holiday schedule for our city employees in our city offices. Juneteenth, of course, is a federal holiday now. It was signed into law last June by the President of the United States. And this is a recognition of independence. It says for African Americans, but to me, this is an American holiday because we should be recognized as far as the independence of the people in this country who were brought here, who have been here, who have had tremendous impact here. And I think it's something that everyone should recognize. I think it's important for our citizens as well as our employees to understand this holiday and know the significance of the liberation of the African Americans who were enslaved in this country and the freedom, liberty that we continue to pursue in this country. So I would like to offer a recommendation that the resolution be approved as a city holiday going forward.
So it happens to be a Sunday this year. And obviously that'll change every year. So will the time off for the employees be Monday, the 20th?
Yes, it would fall just as any holiday
Yeah.
that falls on
On
the
a Sunday.
weekend. It would either be recognized on that Friday or the Monday based on the closest day.
Okay.
And we would also, I think in this approval, basically make sure that our policies are updated so that work on any recognized holiday will be properly compensated and afforded the benefit. Not only, we have our public safety and our essential services that work the holidays. So they should be given compensation and as well as making sure that they are afforded the opportunity to take off for that holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager McDuffie. I echo your words and your sentiments and want to thank yourself and all those on the city staff who've been working to get this resolution in front of us. And I will say, and Commissioner Rolle can add on to it, we were able to go on a trip this past weekend. I was able to go on the first leg. I think she did a couple more legs than I did with the Social Justice Club at Brunswick High, led by Coach Vaughn. And with that Social Justice Club, we were able to leave from Brunswick and go to Sapelo. And I think they went to Savannah and Charleston and came back to really fully understand the slave experience, to understand the Gullah Geechee heritage that is from around here. And you obviously understand that it can touch it when you're out on Sapelo Island. And so those are the things that are of mind or top of mind to me as we hopefully move forward and making this a city holiday to really recognize the life and the liberty of Americans who've given so much to this country. So any other questions or comments? Hearing none, it is open for a motion.
Kendra, can you make the motion?
Wording is, I'd like to make a motion to approve June 19th as a city holiday in the city of Brunswick.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. We'll now move on to updates, where we have update from City Manager McDuffie and staff regarding the following $10 million grant to address College Park stormwater issues. So that,
Georgia City School
oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
was added to the.
Yeah, I apologize. Sorry, we will go back. We had an addendum that was added. Consider approval of resolution 2022-05, recognizing April 24th through the 30th as Georgia Cities Week. City Manager McDuffie.
Thank you. Again, more good news in terms of Georgia Cities Week. We are not doing as much as we did last year for Georgia Cities Week, but we still want to recognize the importance of city government and city services to our citizens. We are having a employee appreciation, which will be on the Friday of that week. The week is between April 24th and the 30th. We are highlighting city government during that week, and we'll have some just public information going out during that time. But we do want to celebrate and just join in with the state through the Georgia Municipal Association in recognizing Georgia Cities Week. This came last year, it was in October. And so this was like a 6-month turnaround because they had changed it last year for COVID. So next year we want to reinvigorate, reestablish, and next April, we will have a full week of activities for our Georgia Cities Week. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And we always want to use this time to obviously say thank you to so many of our city staff. We got some emails coming in over the past couple of weeks from just citizens who are saying thank you to the public works groups, to those in various areas throughout city government. So the work you all do, the work that you all do for the city is not going unrecognized by the people you're doing it for. So we thank you so much. With that, I'm open for a motion.
Oh, that's right. It's a resolution. I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-05, recognizing April 24th through the 30th as Georgia Cities Week.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all of those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you so much. We will now move on to number 5, updates from City Manager McDuffie and staff regarding the following. $10 million grant to address College Park stormwater issues, a $6 million funding for St. Mark's Tower renovations and improvement, and community development block grant disaster relief. We'll now turn it over to Director Alverson.
All right. Give you a quick reminder. I'm sure you all know kind of how we got to this point. We started back in 2016 with a joint project with the city and Glenn County to study College Park. That resulted in a 4-phase plan. We hired EMC Engineering to prepare that study of a 4-phase plan. And we then turned around and moved forward with the design of phase 1, which is an outfall ditch from the College Park neighborhood along the spur down towards Highway 17. And all of the work that has been done so far has been paid for by the city and county, split by the city and county, and paid through SPLOST funding. Then last year, we applied for the CDBG DR Disaster Recovery Grant. We just recently, in the last couple of weeks, received word that we did receive $10 million in funding for that. Glenn County is actually the lead applicant on that. So they're, I guess, officially the grantee, but we're continuing it as a joint project because, you know, part of that basin is in the city and in the county, obviously. In the application, we both committed to a $700 match, $700,000 match, small difference.
That's a no-brainer.
Which would come from our SPLOST funds as well. And we have set that aside throughout our SPLOST funding. So we do have that money available. So yes, it's official now. We do have the funding, so which that is very good news. So now going forward, we had a meeting, long discussion just this past Monday with the folks in the CDBG office and DCA folks, and kind of what we need to do to meet all of their requirements. Of course, this is federal funding, so there's a ton of requirements that have to be met along the way. You know, first of all, first thing they cautioned us to was that there's several compliance requirements that have to be met right here out of the gate. That's probably going to take 45 to 60 days to just signing the paperwork and executing agreements and that kind of thing. So, they just cautious, that's got to be done. So don't get ahead of ourselves here. Once we do that, then we're ready to kind of move forward. One of the first items that we'll need to clean up, and we started with the grant process, is turning in environmental clearances, making sure there's no adverse effects for endangered species or, cultural effects, archaeological effects. We did that. The preliminary studies on those had to be done with the grant application. We don't see any problems there. We just have to clean those up and get those last couple of items in. We have to have those done before we can move forward with property acquisition and that kind of thing. We don't want to acquire a property that might have an environmental concern. That's what they want to avoid. So that will be the next step, is going through the property acquisition process for right-of-way and easements and that kind of thing. Because we have we've completed the design of the phase 1 outfall, we know the parcels, we've identified the parcels that we'll need to acquire for that outfall. And it's minor. I want to say there's 11 small pieces, but they don't add up to about 1.5 acres in total. So it's, a few square feet here and there. So we will then, once we get the environmental clearances done, we'll be able to move forward with that property acquisition. And then once that's completed, then we can move into the construction process and start to go out for construction bids. And one of the things then that we'll run kind of simultaneously with that, or with the construction of phase 1, is we'll drop back and work on the engineering and design of phases 2, 3, and 4. We'll run those as one project. There's no need to separate those into multiple phases. But those will need to be the final design completed and permitting and that kind of thing for those. So I mentioned the 45 to 60 day process. We have to get to that point and Glenn County finalize all the compliance before that can be done. In the meantime, we can start working on procurement of engineers, consultants, and that kind of thing. We can't officially hire anybody, or we can't go out and purchase any property, but we can do the legwork. We can get the RFQs out there. We can even start negotiations with the property owners and that kind of thing, and be ready. So when that compliance period ends, then we're ready to, start spending money and moving forward then. But then, like I said, we'll move into construction, a phase 1, selecting a contractor. Again, because of the federal funding, everything has to follow the federal procurement guidelines. Everything will be done through the competitive proposal process, of course, which we always follow anyway, so that won't be anything new to us. And because of the amounts of the contracts, we'll follow the Davis-Bacon wage rates and all of those kind of requirements will apply to this as well. So that's it. We're excited about being ready to move forward. We got to get these first little hurdle of getting this paperwork and stuff out of the way, and then we'll be jumping into property acquisition and then into construction.
Gary, let me ask you, what Davis-Bacon will apply to every bit of this
For the construction side of that.
for the construction?
Yes, sir.
I want to start out first, and you said 2016 is when the process first started. And so thank you for your work and the commission's work over time. We have Mayor Harvey in the crowd, so I know that started under his leadership. And to see it come to fruition is just absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? And College Park has been working as a community to get this done. So I thank the staff and everybody for this coming to fruition. Just the couple questions that I had is, you said 11 small parcels of land.
I believe it's 11.
Are those 11 different owners, or you know how many different owners?
Probably not 11 different owners.
Okay.
There may be 8 or 9 different owners,
8 or 9
1 or
different.
2 pieces on the same parcel,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. And the other question that I had was, does the 10 million grant that we're coming in, I know we got the first phase, then you said phases 2 through 4. Does that 10 million, how far does that 10 million stretch across those phases?
We anticipate that we're estimating that it will cover everything.
Everything.
So
Perfect.
that was part of our construction estimates, or our total estimates that we submitted with the grant would to cover funding or construction of phase 1, and then engineering and construction of 2, 3, and 4. So
Perfect. Just absolutely
No
proud of
match,
the,
which is great.
yes,
we
the
plan for it to
absolutely
be the full
proud.
package.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I was really pleased to see the county and the city continue to work together on this. I mean, it makes sense, but I think it's always great when we can join together on a project as significant as this to hopefully continue to make some headway addressing that stormwater and flooding in the College Park area.
Right.
So, thank you. Do you know what the county was awarded?
Ma'am?
Do you know what the county was awarded, or is this 10?
Oh, this 10.
is all encompassed?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And just as a ballpark, when we're thinking about it, I know construction timelines change and all of that kind of stuff, but I think one of the struggles that we see is money allocated, and then people wonder how long that timeline is. What are we looking at as far as the timeline where people start maybe seeing dirt moved and completion of the project?
The property acquisition phase is a little bit of a wild card there. So it's hard to put a date on that, but hopefully, being these are small parcels and not a lot of them, we can move through that fairly quickly. Once we get to construction then, and just speaking of the outfall along 17, that's probably a year, maybe an 18-month process. That's going to be a significant amount of dirt to be moved along there, grading work. We've got 2 major crossings of Altama and Cypress Mill Road there that will be crossing both of those roads. So that's going to be a significant project right there. The other phases 2, 3, and 4 are smaller pipe work in the neighborhoods and those kind of things. So once we get the design done and get to construction of those, construction of those won't take near as long as the phase 1 construction will. But
Thank
So
you.
The neighborhood inside of College Park is going to be pretty well impacted.
Yes.
Or if it's in progress.
yes, sir. That's considered phase 2 of the overall project. And there's a good bit of ditch regrading in there, pipe crossings to be installed, some, I believe some ditch lining in there, and several improvements inside the neighborhood to happen there.
So we'll be in there educating them like we have back in the park and that sort of thing.
Yes, so when we get to that point, we certainly will. Yes.
Mayor, I'd like to note that in that process of time, DCA has been, of course, we are very grateful to have the money coming in, but grant administration, I can't describe the difficulty and the complexity of it. And that's one of the things that, I have impressed upon them. Every call that they have, I always tell them how important it is for the time that this has taken, and also, how important it is for the commission, you all, for this to be done, and also for the residents. So we will continue to push them along this process, and it is going to take, that to keep it moving forward, because their processes, and with this being a federal grant, that puts another layer on all of the things that need to be done. But we will continue to push as much as we can to make sure it just continues to move forward.
This was the second application too, wasn't it?
Yes, but this one, we were grateful that they cut it back to only those 3 zip codes that were most distressed, and that, basically, we actually got the lion's share of that $16 million that was allocated. So we are very thankful for that.
We Do I hear any other questions or comments on the 10 million? Thank you so much,
Yes, sir.
Director. And we will move on to the $6 million funding for St. Mark's Towers renovations and improvement. Mr. Steve.
All right, great. Just to piggyback off of, well, first of all, thank you guys for allowing us to do updates tonight. Just to piggyback off of what Garo was saying, and I'm not sure if Mayor Johnson or Commissioner Roll, if you have any idea where the funds came from, so I'll just give a quick little
Thank you.
minute synopsis. And in 2017, we were hit with Hurricane with Irma, and because of that curse, we kind of came upon a gift with these federal funds through DCA. In 2017, later in that year, the state was awarded $64 million. And out of that $64 million, $37 million was unmet needs. Unmet needs, as you may know it, and as you may see it, is housing rehab or housing reconstruction and or housing construction. $27 million of that was CDBGR mitigation. So that's anything that we could, or any project that we may have, thank goodness, from the program that started in 2016. Garo and staff had that one already started. But the $27 million that is with the mitigation is to mitigate anything stormwater related against any hurricane damages. And so where we got really lucky at, out of that $64 million, 80% of those dollars, which were about $30.5 million, were only allocated for competition to St. Mary's, Dougherty County, which is better known as Albany, and the city of Brunswick. And so that's kind of where the process has gotten started. Like I said, it started in 2017. We had to wait for about a couple of years, right, until DCA finally got their staff in line as they got their action reports put together and things of that nature. I'm also glad to say that a lot of their action plan is the city of Brunswick's action plan. I mean, we spent a lot of good hours with them kind of putting that together. So we're really lucky that that was in place and that happened. So that was a little bit of background where we are right now. The first thing we did, we were allocated about $2 million for affordable housing. It didn't come to the city. It just went directly from DCA through a LIHTC project, which is a low income housing tax credit project, which you now see as Perry Place, which is on MLK. So we were able to take a portion of that allotment, loan it to that particular builder, right? And so with that said, they were able to put together Perry Place, which is 57 units of townhomes for low to moderate income citizens, which should be scheduled to open in May. And so I would also like to thank John Hunter throughout that process too, because, you know, that was a process of actually having to, and the URA, I'm sorry, John Hunter and the URA, because the deal is, that was a process that we had to choose a builder, and we had to choose a builder who was comfortable with building in an aesthetically pleasing type of community, including little parks, including green spaces and things of that nature. Not too many times where your builders come to town, they generally want to build really big boxes and parking lots. And so we like to thank the URA, John Hunter, and also the developer, Bill Gross, that did that project. $6 million, we were able to, through the same competition, able to get $6 million for the rehab of St. Mark's Tower. St. Mark's Towers actually had a lot of damage to it, right? It had a lot of damage. With that $6 million, they will be able to secure all 154 units of low to moderate income housing. That particular St. Mark's Tower is 100% seniors, low to moderate income. And so we're really excited that those repairs will be roof, windows, and kind of stucco. You'll be surprised how much roofing and windows cost these days. And so they will be using all of those dollars, particularly for that much. Right now, they are in the process of repairing their roof. And so once that portion of it is finished, that they had already done a prior contract for, we'll be able to come in and start supplying dollars for that. You guys heard about the $10 million in mitigation for stormwater mitigation for College Park. Last but not least, right now we're at about a $1.5 million housing renovation and rehab budget. We haven't started on doing any of those projects just yet. We are making our way slowly but surely through the compliance, the compliance that Garo just talked about. Interestingly enough, the DCA, this is the first time ever in history that they've tried to run their disaster recovery program. And so I think all three cities are kind of guinea pigging, but we have a great staff. We've started to learn to be proactive opposed to be reactive once you kind of find out that state need more help than they've kind of admitting that they need. So, but we're very excited about the housing mitigation program. So with that said, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about a couple of things that happened. We took 110 applications. We have 48 of those applications right now ready to be approved for DCA, whether it's going to be reconstruction or rehab. We had 61 of them that just closed out, and they closed out for reasons that they either withdrew, the zip code was invalid. Once again, you had to be within the 31520 zip code. They had invalid home ownership over the income, and they were non-responsive. And so we've tried to go kind of back over and over those 61 applications just to make sure that, these individuals aren't planning on participating, or they just don't want to participate. But out of that 61 number, the one that I'm really, really excited about is the 31 homes that we were able to clear the titles for. One of the things that happened during this program, we were able to bring in the state's Property Heir Law Center, which is a nonprofit real estate attorneys that help individuals that are low to moderate income help clear their titles through probate. And so one of the things that we did when we sent out our applications was make everyone go through it. Regardless if you did have your proper title or whether you didn't have your proper title, because this was a chance for families to get their titles cleared free of cost, right? And so we have 29 of those that are getting their homes cleared for title. Like I said, some of them were either over the income, withdrew, invalid zip code, but at that particular point, we were able to do that. And so with that said, so far out of the possible 53 million that was left over, the city of Brunswick is up to $19.5 million of their money, and City Manager McDuffie requires that we go get more of it. So
Go get more money.
that's where we're at. Open for questions.
Give me that dollar figure again, Travis. What we got?
19.5 in total. That's
19.5.
yes, sir.
Out of 53 million.
Yes, sir.
It's outstanding.
I did have a question.
Yes,
Out
ma'am.
of the 110 applications and the 48 taken in,
Yes.
was that for homes where people were living in, or did you have any landlords that applied who had people that are renting from them?
No, these were actual individuals that this program was set up for individuals that own their home, and specifically the first phase of the two phases were individuals that were 62 years or older. We wanted to kind of handle our seniors first, our seniors that had issues with their homes. After that phase was over, we moved past anyone could just kind of come in and apply, but they were literally for homeowners.
So they had to be
Primary
primary.
owner occupied, sorry. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
owner occupied, yes.
Good deal. That's great.
Mr. Stegall, we appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you, sir.
And making sure that we get the money down here, but also that we put the money to use.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
hearing everything that you said, and especially I love where you talk about the families clearing their titles,
Mhm.
allowing them to stay in their homes, understand the ownership basis behind their homes,
That's
or
right.
to move into the market in stronger positions. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Did y'all by chance also make sure that as owner occupied primary homes that
Mhm.
they had all applied for the Scarlett Williams tax?
We did not. That wasn't, no, we did not.
Okay.
But what we can do is we still have a ton of contact information because the amount of information that you had to turn in, just to even get the yay or nay, we are more than welcome to kind of create a little campaign so that can go out. But yes.
Yeah,
but
I
no, we
think that
didn't.
would really be important, especially with rehab work being done.
Mhm.
You hate for situations to come up, and in this market with property values going up so quickly, they need to lock in their tax value.
Yes, yes.
We
You're right.
don't
But
wanna see
well, I'm just
this-
sitting here thinking that you're right. And we're going to actually have to talk to the tax commission's office because some of these houses, because of the DCA caps and because of how far gone they've been since Irma, we're probably going to have to rebuild a new house there. So it's probably going to be more expensive than what's there now. So
Mhm.
them being able to kind of lock in what they need to lock in.
You're right about that. And then what would be interesting to know is how many have not applied. That would, as well as getting those benefits that have.
Mhm.
Just for point of fact, because if a lot haven't, then you got another service there that has been brought up right here.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just don't want to see people squeezed off their
No.
property for tax reasons. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
I got a question about the FEMA, if you would tell us where we are with the FEMA flooding in College Park and Eastview, if you know. I'm
Well,
sure you do.
I know that the Rosewood property, we are waiting daily for notification for that particular property, the 3204 Rosewood, because it has met all of their approval, and it was the only one of the 7 properties to get past the cost benefit analysis. From what I've been told, the other 4 properties that were initially applied for, and again, Mayor and Commissioner Roll, this has been going on, prior to me being here, 2 years prior. It's amazing how long this process has been. But those other 4 projects are under reconsideration right now, and we're hopeful that they will meet the final approval as well. I don't have an update on the 2 additional properties, but I will follow up with those.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we'd like to thank you for your update. City Manager McDuffie would like to thank you for leading this effort, these efforts as our city manager and making sure they stay organized and fighting for those additional dollars. So thank you for all that you do. Moving on, we'll move to city attorney items. Number 6, consider approval of intergovernmental agreement between the city of Brunswick and Glenn County in regard to city sidewalks and squares, repairs, reconstruction, and or improvements. City Attorney Corey.
And looking at the agenda, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. And looking at the agenda, it probably should have said confirmation or affirmation of this agreement. For clarification purposes, in November of 2017, this MOU came before previously seated commission. It relates to the discretionary funding that was provided to County Commissioner Walter Rafalski. He allotted $250,000 to be utilized within the city limits of the city of Brunswick. We specifically targeted sidewalks and square improvements. At the time that we drafted the agreement, the city, we had it prepared and was placed on the agenda in November of 2021. It was approved subject to the county's revisions. So the county asked that we would do it subject to any revisions they might make. What you have before you tonight includes the revisions. Senior County Attorney Will Worley made those revisions and sent them back over. We sort of had an internal dialogue as to whether or not they're taking it up for approval tomorrow night. The county is. I don't anticipate it having any issue getting approved. But as we talked about some of the changes, they asked that the mediation clause be removed. I'd consider that a substantive change to the MOU. I have no issue having a mediation clause removed. It's probably a best practice. But since it's a substantive change to the MOU and there's an additional bit of information we added to Exhibit A regarding the squares that the property, the funding will be used on, we sort of concluded that that was a substantive change that would need to be affirmed, confirmed by the city commission in a final form so that this MOU can finally be signed and move forward with the improvements that are contemplated therein. Just for a little bit of backstory, the $250,000 is used. You can see on Exhibit A, with the help of the city engineer, we went through and targeted very specific blocks for sidewalk repair. And then in discussions with the city manager's office and Signature Squares, we took a look at which ones were sort of ripe for shovel in the ground, and Wright Square and Satilla Square were added to this exhibit for the purposes of getting these funds spent. I think it's the county commissioner, Mr. Rafalski, is eager to kind of see this get done. So that's why it's before you tonight. That's why there was a little bit of confusion as why it came before the city in November. And why it's come back. I think if we hadn't made some of those substantive changes, it could have been affirmed with a couple of nomenclature. They made some changes to the name of the fund that it was being brought out of. That probably wouldn't have necessitated it bringing back. So any questions?
No, so it's really kind of a general agreement
Very, very much so.
that could be used in the future almost for.
It's based on a cost sharing agreement that we've
Yeah.
utilized in the past. I think we have a pretty good one between the county and the city at the moment, like a template almost. This one's unique in that we wanted to show how this would benefit citizens of city and county.
Yeah.
We have, of course, plenty of county citizens that come downtown,
Mhm.
utilize our sidewalks, utilize the squares. So it's very mutually beneficial to have something like this in place that we can rely on.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for City Attorney Corey? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the intergovernmental agreement between the city of Brunswick and Glenn County in regards to city sidewalks and squares, repairs and or reconstruction and or improvements.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you so much. I think we have one item for executive session.
We do for litigation.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session for litigation and then return after that.
Hearing a first and a second, all those show by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, we are adjourned for executive session. And we have returned from executive section. We have taken no action. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Hearing a first, do I hear a second? Hearing a first and a second, all those approved show by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.